Thank you. A special meeting of the Wisconsin Elections Commission will take place tomorrow to decide ballot access for a number of candidates facing petition challenges. The outcome could impact the race for Congress among Democrats in the 8th District. That covers a big portion of northeast Wisconsin. New at 6, Chief Political Reporter Jason Zimmerman is looking into the accusations. He's live in the newsroom. Jason.
Cami, two of the challenges being taken up target Mark Scheffler, one of the 3 Democrats running in the August primary. Of those 2 challenges, one is coming from Scheffler's opponent, Rick Crossan, who doesn't believe Scheffler collected the necessary valid signatures to get on the ballot. Paperwork filed with the Wisconsin Elections Commission has Crossan saying Scheffler filed with 1,405 signatures, needing 1,000 to get on the ballot. A review found only 1,320 of those signatures to be valid. However, Crossan argues that more signatures should be struck because Scheffler's campaign failed to use the right forms under Wisconsin Act 126. That law took effect on March 30th, requiring all circulators to be qualified electors of Wisconsin and to certify their eligibility as such in the circular certification. Crossan also points out that some papers have the wrong election date, citing a primary of August 11th instead of the general election on November 3rd.
If we can't follow these particular types of rules just to get on the ballot, it just strikes me as a significant issue for someone considering who to entrust to function as a congressman. So I'm all about transparency and accountability and attention to detail.
Also today, Mark Scheffler issued a statement saying, quote, "We are confident that the Wisconsin Elections Commission will validate what we already know to be true, that every statutory obligation was fully met and that the will of thousands of people who properly signed my nomination forms cannot be invalidated," end quote. That second challenge to Scheffler's paperwork to get on the ballot has similar claims. It was filed by Robin Soldana, who is associated with the Republican Party of Brown County. The Wisconsin Elections Commission will make their decision in a meeting set to get underway tomorrow at 10 a.m. Cami, back to you.